Welcome to the Mio on MMA podcast, episode 80. Kind of a meaningless milestone, but here we are. And if you're on the YouTube episodes, a lot more. Because on YouTube, the catalog goes back to I was in high school. Where we are talking like 20 years worth. Anyways, UFC Vegas. Is this UFC Vegas 69? I do believe. Is it not? Hang on. I should have had this up on the. I have the Tapology page up, but that never has the numbers. You need the Wikipedia page to find the UFC Vegas, etc., Apex, etc. thing. And of course, here I am looking at Jessica Andrade Wikipedia to find it, and the answer is no. Andrade versus Blanchfield. There it is. UFC Vegas 69, UFC Fight Night 219, UFC on ESPN Plus 77. I don't know what they don't have the Apex number. Anyways, it's a card at the Apex. It is not good in terms of impact on paper. Does that mean the fights themselves are going to be bad? Not necessarily. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to the main event. Jim Miller and Alex Hernandez, that's a good fight. Like that's kind of the perfect fight for both of them to a certain degree. Jamal Amers versus Hussein Ashkabov. Kind of interesting. Little interesting. And then some of the other fights have like kind of some upside, like Sadikov versus Elder. That could be fun, even though I have significant concerns about both of them as a UFC level prospect. Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright could be an absolute mess and fun in that sense. But there's just a tremendous lack of actual impact on the card. That's what it comes down to, honestly. There's just not a lot here. It's a lot of guys who maybe are UFC caliber, but I have significant doubts. Like if I run down this card for a second here, I look at all the guys who I have legit questions as to whether they are UFC caliber, or I've completely written them off. You have Jordan Wright, you have Zach Pauga, you have Jamal Pogues, you have Matthew Pacino, you have William Knight, you have Lena Landsberg. At this point, it should be mentioned, Lena Landsberg was UFC caliber once upon a time. Don't know if she is now. You have Jamal Emmers, you have Hussein Ashkabov, you have Ovince St. Preux. Again, like Landsberg, it's more of an age thing. You have Sadikov, you have Elder, you have AJ Fletcher, you have Themba Gorimbo, you have Clayton Carpenter, and you have Juan Camilo Rondaros. All of those guys and gals do not actually feel like UFC level fighters. And you can be like, okay, well, who is? Andrade, Blanchfield, Miller, Hernandez, Buena Silva, Lins. You have 6 people total. 7 people. Josh Parisian. But that's a heavyweight, which is its own special commodity, I guess. Let me dip into something here real quick. Well, 2 things. Number 1, I'm going to try to put this at the beginning for a change. If you look below, to the left, to the right, above, depends where you're watching this or listening to this. If you take a look, you're going to find a Linktree link. You're going to find a Discord link. You're going to find a bunch of links to my stuff. The places where the podcast lives, my Discord where my simulators and like little side passion projects live. I do not make money off them. So if you want to check them out, I'm suggesting it just because I think you'll have fun with it. I think if you enjoy mixed martial arts, you enjoy analytical breakdown of fights, you will enjoy the simulated options for mixed martial arts, for slam ball, and for pro wrestling. Although I can't take credit for the pro wrestling one. That is my associate Doug's work. Anyways, all free. Check it out. Check out the Discord for that. You can find my Twitch there as well. You can find my Twitter there as well. You can enjoy my nerdy gaming side of myself. And the other thing I want to talk about quick, pound for pound. This has dominated, of course, the MMA news cycle, media, etc., because we had pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2 at UFC 284, for what it's worth, and the pound for pound number 2 beat the pound for pound number 1. Here is the thing. If you believe Islam Makhachev is the best fighter in the world, he is your pound for pound pick, I have no problem with that. I disagree. I do disagree. But it's a perfectly fine take. To be honest, it's always been a perfectly fine take to take the best guy at any weight class and put them at number 1 pound for pound. And it's not ridiculous. That does not necessarily mean like the UFC champion. Like I would probably draw the line of like a Leon Edwards, just because Leon Edwards did lose 3 out of 4 rounds to Kamaru Usman before knocking him out. He had lost a prior fight to him. I still do believe Usman is the better fighter. But I also respect that in welterweight rankings, you do kind of have to put Edwards above. Here's the thing. If your rationale, though, is that the pound for pound number 2 beat the pound for pound number 1, therefore he is the pound for pound number 1, therefore that was what they were fighting about, etc., guys, it's a promotional tool. There is no such thing as a pound for pound fight. Volkanovski was the smaller man on the night. And that's not an excuse. But it's a point that was a lightweight fight, not a pound for pound fight. Volkanovski is a worse lightweight than Makhachev. Even though I scored the fight for Volkanovski, but a lot of people scored for Islam, and I've come to peace with the idea that that's a perfectly legitimate scorecard. I don't know about the 4-1, but 3-2 is 48-47. Islam is perfectly fine. And the reason is this: is that someone pulled this on me when I was saying this. You're making excuses for the loss. Next, you'll be talking about the difference in height between the two as a defender, and we can't really ever have a fair fight without like equal reach. And it's not an excuse because it's a fair fight. But here's the thing: if you're going to talk pound for pound, that is skill per pound. That is the only criteria. This is literally the only criteria. If you had Makhachev number 1, and some people did before the fight, and you still have him there, cool. If you moved him there because you saw something that makes you think that Makhachev is actually a better fighter than Volkanovski, I'm curious as to what it is, but let's have that conversation. But a lot of people do seem to have like the logic begins and ends with Volkanovski lost to Makhachev, therefore, pound for pound, he is worse. That's like saying if Francis Ngannou fought Brandon Moreno, knocked him out. Well, Francis Ngannou clearly better pound for pound fighter. Let's ignore the fact that he's, I don't know. What do you guys think the difference is actually between those two? It's got to be like 100 pounds, 110 pounds between those two. But anyways, and I get that that's obviously the hyperbolic example here. But that is the idea, is that the pound for pound thing is to go beyond weight class, to go to abstract things. The idea of if these two were the same size, what would happen? And maybe you think Makhachev would still win. And again, that is fine. But that is not what we had at UFC 284. All right, let's get on to the fights. I've gussied around the weeds as much as I care to. Jessica Andrade, Erin Blanchfield, late notice replacement fight. This was supposed to be Tyler Santos versus Blanchfield. Blanchfield is 3 inches taller. She is 6 inches longer. Andrade is a fighter that inspires incredibly mixed feelings about. I love watching her fight. Actually seems like a really neat person too. But from an analytic standpoint, God, is it annoying, because she is a fighter that is the personification of the athletic cheat code, where it's not that she's bad. There's a structure there. There's nuance there. There's some good low kicks. There's some good wrestling talent. There is some interesting grappling ideas. There is some good boxing. But everything she does is underlined by the fact that she is a beast, a physical freak, even by the standards of physical freaks. She may be the single biggest freak in women's MMA, physically speaking. So strong, explosive, durable. Somehow, despite having all that strength and throwing all that power all the time, does not seem to get tired. That used to be a problem. That was a problem back in the day. She would get tired, mostly from trying to manhandle bantamweights, admittedly, while being, the size of a strawweight. But she has addressed that. She can fight hard for 25 minutes. I don't necessarily know that Blanchfield can, although we'll get more to Blanchfield in a bit. I suspect she can. I just haven't seen it. That's really kind of all I have to say about Andrade in that regard. She did absolutely destroy Lauren Murphy to the point where Lauren Murphy probably should have had the towel thrown in. I'm standing by that take. And she's taking this on short notice. But I don't know if the dynamic of the fight changed all that much. Because, Tyler Santos is a less diverse version of Andrade. But given how Blanchfield probably intended to fight Santos, she's probably going to intend to fight Andrade the same way and run into some similar hurdles. I really like Erin Blanchfield. She just has a really, really solid game. It's a front foot game. It's a aggressive clinch wrestling game. Get it to the ground, control people, break them down, work for submissions. I like her front headlock game. I like her back game. She's not some exceptionally dangerous submission artist in the sense that if we pull up her record here for a hot second, you're going to see a lot of decisions. There's a decision against Miranda Maverick, very rare raw fighter. Decision against Sarah Alpar, decision against Brogan Walker. She does have a head kick knockout against Victoria Leonardo. I don't think that's probative to hear. She did submit Molly Buchanan. She did submit JJ Aldridge. And then, went to decision with Kay Hansen and Brittany Cloudy. And then the other, and lost a decision to Tracy Cortez. She's very, very good. Very, very good. My problem is that her pathway to victory probably is something she can't implement. We talked about the reach, having 6 inches reach, 3 inches height. You think, okay, she can work an outside game. She can do her thing. But if you take away the head kick knockout of Victoria Leonardo, there is essentially no actual indication that she has the range striking game to actually do that. Now, she is 23. Major improvements, not out of the question. Andrade makes mistakes, can be careless, and those are things to capitalize on, maybe. But as much as I do think like Blanchfield can handle a beast, because Miranda Maverick is a beast. She had a fair amount of success against Tracy Cortez as well. She had, but at the same time, she had a hard time when she got JJ Aldridge in the clinch, getting her down. And she did lose to Tracy Cortez a long time ago. Different fighter. But the dynamic there is kind of the same as that she got into trouble with someone who could physically compete with her in the clinch, and Andrade 100% can. I'm going with Andrade by decision. Mostly because having watched her not finish Lauren Murphy, have all the opportunities in the world to finish Lauren Murphy and not actually be able to do it. Blanchfield is a more physical opponent. Someone who's never been finished. Someone who's never even really been particularly in trouble. So I see it going the distance. I guess that would be the hope, is that Andrade taking this 5-round fight on short notice might just get tired. And it might open some things up. But Blanchfield doesn't have the style that has historically beaten her. And Andrade is the favorite, minus 129 to minus 148. Blanchfield coming back at a plus 105 to plus 116. That seems about right for this being a late notice replacement fight. Like if this was a full camp situation, these two ladies preparing for each other, I would expect those odds to be wider. But I get it. Moving on to the co-main event. Oh my god, why? Like here's the thing. Even why this 205 fight for a co-main event? You've got William Knight and Marcin Prachnio, who at least both have wins in the UFC as options. And you have Ovince St. Preux versus Philippe Lins, which is probably the best of the 205 fights, and the one that I would put here. If you're like, gun to my head, you need to put a 205-pound fight in the co-main event here. My co-main event would be Jim Miller versus Alex Hernandez, but that's just me. And I get why that wasn't. That's another late notice replacement fight. But Pauga is coming off the Ultimate Fighter, where he lost the finals to Mohammed Usman. No shame there. He was fighting a weight class up. Usman is raw as all heck, but is a scary fighter. Jordan Wright is terrible, though. That's kind of the word I gotta go. Has he won since his UFC debut? Oh, he did. Okay, he has 2 wins. He beat Ike Villanueva and Jamie Pickett. Maybe the two, least... Well, okay. Villanueva's problem is that he's incredibly physically ungifted, and Pickett's problem is he's incredibly uncomfortable. Other than that, lost to Joaquin Buckley, lost to Bruno Silva, lost to Marc-Andre Barrio in embarrassing fashion, and Dusko Todorovic in embarrassing fashion. I don't know why this is a co-main event. Okay, the fight. The fight itself. Same height. Wright's got an inch of reach. He's coming up to 205. Pauga's coming back to 205. I think nothing about Jordan Wright is fixed by going to 205 because he's a guy who gasses out, but I think it's nerves. Because I don't think he's in bad shape. I've seen training videos of him. I've seen the guys he's working with. I have seen all these things that suggest that Jordan Wright is actually outside of the octagon in perfectly good shape. If you ask that guy to run a marathon, he could do it. It's just in the cage, he is so nervous and so keyed up and so tense and snapping like a. I had a thing for this. I had a thing for this. And now I can't remember what it was. But anyways, he's so keyed up that he gasses himself out. He's defensively incredibly porous, both as a grappler and as a striker. That's terrible. He's kind of an offensive dynamo in both regards. Like, he's a creative guy who will do stupid shit and does hit really hard and is pretty fast. Like, his problem is not athleticism. And he has actually some okay wrestling takedowns, but he can be out scrambled, he can be out grappled, he can be out struck, he can be out everything. And as much as I'm not really in any way excited for Zach Pauga's UFC run, he's very meat and potatoes, very bare bones, but effective game. Like, he has essentially all the meta tools. He can throw volume, he can throw with power, throws in combination, he can wrestle, he can grapple, he can do all of the things. Maybe we'll see big steps forward because he's 6 fights into his career. Maybe he's also like full-time fighting now. I don't think he was before. He's reasonably durable. He's actually quite calm, quite composed. The opposite of Jordan Wright, and I see him getting the TKO victory. Like, I see Wright coming out and actually doing some, putting the fight on him early and then just falling apart. Like he normally does with anyone who doesn't go. Like, he's the definition of, I am going to make the bad man go away, and it's 2 minutes into the fight, and the bad man is still there, and I'm in trouble. And Zach Pauga is a sizable favorite at minus 270 to minus 310. Wright is a sizable underdog at plus 210 to plus 235. Heavyweight fight, Josh Parisian versus Jamal Pogues. Parisian is an inch taller. He's got 2 inches of reach advantage. Here's the thing about Pogues. Doesn't feel like a heavyweight. I've seen him fight at 205. Too much for me to think he's a heavyweight. When he's at heavyweight, he just seems fat. Which, I mean, Parisian is fat, but Parisian is a Parker Porter kind of fat, if you catch my drift. Like very solidly built, whereas like it just seems like there's just excess human on Jamal Pokes when he fights at heavyweight. I like a lot about it. Like he hits good reactive shot takedowns. He's surprisingly cool under pressure. He shifts levels very effectively. He throws nice single power strikes, both punches and kicks, which is nice. Seems like a good athlete. Scrambles well on bottom. Actually, does a really good job. The him and Alex Polizzi, if you want a fun like scrambling fight, is one to check out from I think it was LFA. He lost that fight, but nonetheless, a fun fight that kind of showed him doing a lot of what he does well, because Polizzi is actually a pretty good fighter. But his wrestling doesn't seem to be nearly as effective when he is trying to... Sorry, I got a little sniffle. When he is trying to actually implement his wrestling game. Like when he's like, come to me, walk onto my takedowns, I'm going to take you down. It's very good, but when he has to go forward and implement his wrestling, it's actually quite poor. I honestly just don't think he'll get Parisian down. And Parisian's a guy who is durable, has for heavyweight a decent pace and decent volume, has some creativity, and is just probably just bigger and stronger. If you're not going to throw in combos, I don't see you getting the one hitter quitter on Parisian, and Pokes has a lot of openings as a defensive fighter, and he does fade. And like, here's the thing, he's got 5 finishes, which sounds great, except that they had a combined record of 1-3 coming into that fight. He is only stopping exceptionally green fighters. And again, Parisian is not a particularly good fighter, but he has the heavyweight meta, which is I am durable, I hit hard, and I can kind of do it for a little while. I'm going with Parisian by TKO. He's the underdog here. Plus 195 to plus 205. I don't know why. I don't know why you would put Pokes at a minus 240 to minus 265. Like, he's more exciting looking. Like, don't get me wrong. Like if Pokes can put things together and build things onto his existing skill set, he's not physically limited. I don't want to say the sky is the limit, because I don't really think that that's the case. But there's a lot of like improvements he can make to be a better fighter, whereas Parisian is what he's going to be. He's going to be a guy who has a bizarre spinning back fist knockout on Dana White Contender Series, somehow didn't get a contract. Jamal Pokes is a crappy fight, somehow gets a contract. Go figure. Dana White Contender Series makes very, very little sense to me in terms of who actually gets a contract off of a win. We'll just put it that way. William Knight, Marcin Prachnio. I'm not looking forward to this fight, because I'm not looking forward to either guy. Prachnio 5 inches taller, 1 inch longer. Knight is a physical beast, but he's incredibly raw. I wouldn't say that he does anything well. Honestly, he's just kind of a guy that like people will start well against and then kind of clinch up with him. Alonzo Menifield and Alexa Kammer are my best examples of this, and they just get kind of unmanned. They're like, oh my God, this guy is huge. This guy is so powerful. This guy is a 5'10" dude who could actually look the part at heavyweight. Excuse me. But it's nothing there. Prachnio's a glass cannon, but seems to have sorted out some of his own like internal demons about being hit really hard, and went to decision with Khalil Roundtree and with Felipe Lins. I'm going Prachnio by decision. I guess I'm counting on his improved defenses and the fact that Knight does not surprise anyone, and Prachnio has a way better outside striking game to get the job done. Knight is the favorite. I don't have a problem with that. Minus 118 to minus 125. Prachnio is minus 108, and you can find him as high as an underdog as plus 100. I wouldn't trust Prachnio in any way, shape, or form, despite the fact that I'm picking him. But like, it's a battle of two guys that I don't trust for entirely different reasons. Prachnio, it's physical. He's not an amazing athlete. He's not been the most durable fighter. And with Knight, it's technical. If you gave William Knight to like some really good coaches, he would be a monster. Like, he's got the dexterity, the durability, the strength, the speed, the explosiveness. Actually, it's pretty reasonable cardio considering how much muscle mass he hauls around. But he just doesn't have any technical game to back it up. Jim Miller versus Alexander Hernandez. Hernandez is an inch taller and an inch longer. It's weird. I swear Miller's been getting shorter over the years, and that might actually be legitimately the case. He is getting old. But yeah, he is shorter than Hernandez now, apparently. We know Miller at this point. Dude is the most proven commodity probably in UFC history, if we're being entirely honest. He is a good grappler. He is an opportunistic striker who actually sets things up pretty nicely, opens up gaps for himself to get things done. He has seemed done at numerous points due to his prolonged battle with Lyme's disease. But right now, he's been looking pretty good. He's actually put together a solid-ass run here of shattering prospects' dreams and making them cry and beating Donald Cerrone. Not a prospect, obviously, but, an older guy. But Nicholas Mata, Eric Gonzalez, Roosevelt Roberts back in 2020 had, hiccups in the road. Joe Selecki, Vince Pichel. Lost to Scott Holtzman, which that is a loss that does not age well at all. Alexander Hernandez has some of the things that had beaten him before. Lots of physical upside, good wrestler, powerful striker, hits hard, hits fast. Throws in some level of combinations. Very explosive. A little bit of creativity mixed in. Has all the physical tools. I mean, this is a guy who came in and barnstormed Beneil Dariush, which at the time we didn't think much of, but talk about a win that has aged incredibly well. No one has done that to Dariush really since. There's just zero depth to him. If you can extend exchanges, he starts losing. If you can extend grappling rolls, he starts losing. He doesn't handle savvy veterans really at all well. It's not nothing. Because again, Beneil Dariush is a fairly savvy guy. He got the win there. He beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier. That's actually not a bad win as well. But Donald Cerrone, Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, Renato Moicano, Billy Quarantillo, all of them found ways to just kind of weather the storm, get to advantageous positions, or pound him out. And I am picking Jim Miller to do the same. Because I could totally see Hernandez shooting into a guillotine choke. I could totally see Hernandez getting his back taken and getting choked out. I could totally see Hernandez running into a hard Jim Miller shot. I could totally see him ending up getting pounded out. I could also see him losing a decision. Probably not, though. I think a finish is more likely. I'm going with you. Why? Why is Miller the underdog here? Miller is plus 175 to plus 190. I know he's old. I know. But Hernandez, minus 225, minus 250. Do I have that written down wrong? Is it possible I have that written down wrong? Let me pull up the best fight odds here. Because I feel like I have written this down wrong. Like this is a line that doesn't make sense to me. No, that is the line. My lord. People actually are going to give you plus 190 on Jim Miller in this fight. Down to plus 175. And they want you to bet on Hernandez at minus 225 to minus 250. Why? Miller by sub. Nazim Sadikov versus Evan Elder. Same height. Elder has 2 inches reach. Battle of two really good camps here, but two guys who I also have a ridiculous number of questions about. You've got Killcliff FC with Evan Elder. You've got Sadikov with Sarah Longo Weidman. Well, let's start with Sadikov. Sadikov is putting together a reasonably good power boxing into wrestling standard game. That archetype there that we have a lot of at lightweight that's not remotely new or whatever. Has a little bit of creativity. I like that he digs to the body, throws with power. He is a pretty good athlete. Obviously, with the Ray Longo and Chris Weidman training, the guy is going to have excellent insight, excellent mentorship to continue to improve. I do not like a couple of things about his game, though. Number one is, even though he is actually really good at scrambling and getting back off bottom, he doesn't seem that hard to take down, if we're being honest. And on top of that, he does not move his head. Does not move his head at all. That guy is so stationary as a boxer that he is going to get clipped. And also, both of these guys suffer from the same thing. Their strength of competition has been incredibly weak. Incredibly weak. So are they UFC caliber? Well, I'm not sure this fight is going to tell us that. Moving on to Evan Elder. We've not seen him in 9 months. He's been training at Killcliff FC during that time period. I expect to see some improvements, but what we saw last time out was a guy who is not amazingly powerful or amazingly athletic, fighting like a dude who is amazingly powerful and amazingly athletic. He will mix spinning stuff in with nothing. He throws incredibly naked kicks. Oh, by the way, Sadikov's finish on Dana White Contender Series with the catch kick and then spin kick to the body. Beautiful. Beautiful. But again, over a guy who I just felt was very physically overmatched. Elder is structureless. He is a guy who doesn't really impose anything on the fight, even though, kind of has the reach to do so. He's probably going to let Sadikov wrestle with him. He may even initiate the wrestling, and again, given that I said Sadikov is not that hard to take down, that may not actually be the worst idea in the world. But I do have to pick Sadikov by decision here. It could just be that this is Sadikov's UFC debut, and he has not lost since his debut fight. I'm willing to wave a magic wand and completely ignore that loss. Whereas Elder did make his UFC debut, and it's not that he lost to Preston Parsons, because it was a weight class up, late notice replacement. It is what it is. But it was the fact that he never really seemed to have particularly great answers for Parsons until Parsons kind of got tired. And again, the complete lack of structure was absolutely there. The terrible positions after every strike. He would throw a strike. He would be in a terrible position to defend against a comeback strike or against a takedown. And I would assume that Sadikov, with the coaches he has, is going to be ready for that. So yeah, Sadikov by decision. He is the favorite, minus 188 to minus 200, plus 154 to plus 170 on Evan Elder. I have no problem with those betting odds. I don't really trust either guy. We're going to find out. And we're going to move on to the next fight. Lena Landsberg versus Mayra Buena Silva, women's bantamweight fight. Landsberg an inch taller, somehow has an inch less to reach. Buena Silva has ridiculously long arms. This just boils down to, I don't really know why Landsberg's fighting anymore. She's 40 years old. She's on a 3-fight skid. It's against good fighters, don't get me wrong. But for a woman who never really blew us away with physical ability at any point, she's just kind of a tough, scrappy clinch fighter. And I don't really know what a Buena Silva win looks like, because Buena Silva's wins usually look like her being incredibly opportunistic and taking advantage of like one moment to sink in a submission or hit somebody really, really, really hard. And Landsberg is incredibly durable and generally does not get finished. So I don't really know what the fight looks like, but Bueno Silva, younger, not necessarily better in any technical ways, but just like way higher physicality, more lethality, more venom, will have big moments in the fight, whereas Landsberg does not. Bueno Silva by decision. She is the biggest favorite on the card, minus 450 to minus 600. Landsberg is plus 340 to plus 425. I think that makes her the biggest underdog. It'd be weird if she wasn't, but that does sometimes happen. Yeah, she's the biggest underdog, but widest odds on the night. So I don't know. I guess if you really, really don't believe in Bueno Silva, this is an underdog to rock. But I've never had a tremendous amount of faith in Landsberg to be anything but tough. To go out there and make it hard on an opponent. Don't get me wrong. Like, she will. This is not questioning her heart as a heart of a warrior, her character, her strength of determination. It is all there. This woman loves fighting, but it has never been backed up with a particularly winnable game. Jamal Emmers versus Hussein Ashkabov. Emmers 2 inches taller. I don't have a reach figure for Ashkabov, actually. Emmers does feel a little bit longer, though. We have not seen Emmers since 2021, when he got his knee absolutely shredded up by Pat Sabatini, and that's kind of the thing that has me questioning things. It was a nasty injury, and it seems like he's had injuries since, because he had fights fall apart with withdrawals. I suspect that knee may not be 100%. I really like Emmers' game. Wrestler by trade, likes to box, throws kicks pretty well, actually. He is not a bad striker. He is not a bad wrestler. He is not a bad grappler. He is everything you kind of need to be, and I would really like to see him succeed over Ashkabov because he has all the structure, the nuance I like. There is some problems with his decision-making. Specifically, I mean, the Pat Sabatini fight is a perfect example of that. He knocks Pat Sabatini down and decides to engage in a toe hold with him. Don't do that. Sabatini's a great leg lock guy. You're not a great leg lock guy. It's clear that you didn't know what you were doing. So there is that kind of problem. Ashkabov, 23-0, signed a while ago. Was supposed to be on Dana White Contender Series. Had visa issues. Had visa issues again. Got injured. 23-0. Lots of cool looking finishes. Likes to do flips when he wins stuff. He's a ridiculous athlete. He can do anything you really want him to do. Front choke game, hyper aggressive grappler, hyper opportunistic. But his level of competition has been pretty damn low, and his striking is an absolute mess. And he fights in a manner that suggests that he is not aware that his striking is an absolute mess. I really want to pick Emmers. I really do. But there's the Sabatini knee injury. There is the fact that Ashkabov, while he will put himself in terrible positions because of his athleticism, is that kind of freak athlete. He is the type of dude that, like, even when he's out there and you're like, wow, that dude just got reversed and got his back taken by this really unimpressive fighter. But then he'll do something that you're like, okay, this guy is a physical freak. It's the Clayton Rodriguez or various other ideas, like guys who I have all kinds of thoughts are not actually as good as they think they are, but have the physical game to just completely overwhelm people. And I have to go with Ashkabov by decision. Emmers does not have the greatest track record with talented grapplers. There is the Pat Sabatini loss. There is also his loss to memory is not serving me right now. Oh no, his other loss was to Giga Chikadze and Julian Rosa. I don't know. Thiago Moises back in the day also got him, and Ray Trujillo back in 2015. Ashkabov, but I will be rooting for Emmers. It's a little bit of a sadness hedge because if Ashkabov wins, I get to, chalk up that W. If Emmers wins, he's the exact type of fighter I like to see succeed. A guy who, does have physicality to compete and has put together a smart game. He just sometimes has some moment-to-moment problems. Plus 110 to plus 135 on Emmers, minus 138 to minus 160 on Ashkabov. Let's move on to the next fight. Actually, final word on that fight. That could be really, really good. Ashkabov could be a guy who, he is limited. He is linked to ATT and to Tiger Muay Thai. He could take massive steps forward. We have not seen him in a long time. He may come out of this like an exceptionally polished prospect who just actually executes Emmers. But I kind of need to see it to believe it. Ovince St. Preux versus Felipe Lins. OSP is an inch taller, 2 inches longer. This feels like, essentially, this feels like the Mayra Bueno Silva versus Lena Landsberg fight, but actually worse. OSP at 39 years of age, losing durability, never having had a structured or nuanced game, always kind of having been a guy who relied on moment-to-moment violence and threat. Isn't a guy that I'm going to ever really pick against anybody I think is actually kind of good. And Felipe Lins, I think he's kind of good. He came down to 205 and looked really good against Marcin Prachnio. By the way, why is this not on the main card? I'm not even excited for this fight, but at least it has name recognition value. Former PFL champion Lins, big-time Strikeforce guy in OSP, a guy who's fought John Jones, who's fought essentially everyone at 205, if we're being completely honest. Why is that not on the main card? For Lins, dude actually looked like a bully at 205. He came out and he's like, I'm big. Ooh, boy, I'm going to do some things. I'm going to impose my will on this fight. He's got some pretty decent boxing. He throws with power. He throws with good explosiveness, good speed, throws in combinations, maintains the range that he wants, mixes in kicks. Decent wrestler, good grappler, very competent. He's the type of fight that OSP probably actually would have won years ago because he's not singularly dangerous in a way that usually catches up with OSP, and he's not an amazing athlete or anything. But 39-year-old OSP, don't pick him. Don't pick him. Don't pick him. Lins by decision, OSP plus 170 to plus 185. Lins at minus 205 to minus 230. That seems about right. AJ Fletcher versus Themba Gorimbo. Gorimbo has an insane reach advantage, 2 inches taller, 9.5 inches of reach over AJ Fletcher. Jesus. The part of this is because Fletcher has ridiculously short arms, and it is actually comically limiting to his fighting style because he wants to be like a power striker with a wrestling B game, and he has to get really in close and eat a bunch of crap to get there. He does have decent building block talents for that. For a guy who apparently is not a wrestler. Has explosive takedowns. He has a lot of physicality. He does hit very hard. Is in himself very durable, actually. He is, during his UFC run, he has taken some pretty stunning shots and kept coming back for more and kept doing his thing. Has the physicality of a UFC caliber welterweight. Has the mad dog mindset. His cardio does fade a little bit. It's a little bit worrying. Like I said, lack of reach. And as a result, the fight is usually defined by his opponent more than himself. And that brings us to Themba Gorimbo from Zimbabwe. Trains out of South Africa. Gym I've never heard of. He's a mess. He is a mess. I've used the term mess to describe other fighters on this card. Hussein Ashkabov would be an example of that. Evan Elder. Jamal Pogues, to a certain degree, is a mess. Jordan Wright is a mess. I guess Jordan Wright would be the most comparable one here, although for completely opposite reasons. Garimbo is not comfortable as a striker at all, despite the fact that he definitely has the reach to be a jab and outside kind of guy. Like the type of fighter that this kid could be is pretty obvious. But what he likes to do, how he wins his fights is through top control. And the thing is, he's not a good wrestler. He's not a guy who has any real grappling. I'm sorry. I do not know why this guy is signed to the UFC. I don't know. There are fighters on this card that I feel are overhyped, untested, etc. That literally is like a massive chunk of the card. But Garimbo is the guy who, being charitable too, I don't think can do anything in the UFC. So, on one hand, I have my overarching thoughts on the limitations of AJ Fletcher. That he, to a degree, is trying to build a game that he's not physically adapted to because of his lack of reach. Although he does have a lot of physical attributes that are good. Like, I think if he emphasized his wrestling and worked on it and, was hard in the wrestling room, I don't want to say Team Alpha Male. He's too big for Team Alpha Male, but, AKA could turn this kid into something. I don't know about Tim Crater's school, but hey, I do have a little bit of faith in Crazy Tim. Garimbo is just bad. I don't know if there's a guy in his weight class I'd pick him to beat in the UFC. I don't understand this signing. I don't get it. Fletcher by TKO. He hits hard. Garimbo is not comfortable being hit. He's not comfortable exchanging. If you cede the exchanges to Fletcher and you can't make use of your 9.5-inch reach, which he has shown no ability to do, no ability to work a jab game, no ability to work a counter game, no ability to work a kicking game, Fletcher should barnstorm him. Fletcher is a minus 250 to minus 280 favorite, which I never thought I'd say in the UFC. Garimbo plus 210 to plus 235. And the opening fight of the night, Juan Camilo Ronderos. I love that name. Versus Clayton Carpenter. It's Clay Guida's illegitimate son. Carpenter is 2 inches taller, 1.5 longer. I don't like what the game that Ronderos has put together here. It's a static top control wrestle boxer game. Very basic wrestle boxing, to be clear. Like, the boxing part is nothing. He wants to implement a top control game that is way too static for flyweight, unless you are absolutely a monster. He is not. He is on the lower end of the physicality scale for the division. The only thing I can really say for him is that, three things. One, the guy comes in shape. The guy comes with heart and durability, and he is training out of Extreme Couture, which is a camp that, if any camp, can probably work this game, this idea of a game, into something functional. Carpenter's an MMA lab guy. Doesn't fight like it. No structure. Good athlete. Not a monster. Raw. Wild. Open offensively. I could totally see him getting taken down over and over again by Ronderos. Even though Ronderos absolutely got sunned by David Dvorak last time out. Oh my lord. He got sunned so hard. And he was a guy that got signed off of 4 fights. Like, he's a guy who's here. I don't know if he's ever going to be the guy. Like I said, flyweight is a weight class that punishes a lack of athleticism. Athleticism is simultaneously less of a weapon at flyweight because everybody is generally a pretty good athlete, but it is the thing you absolutely need. And I don't think Ronderos has it, but I need to see Carpenter fight to a win condition. With some structure, with some nuance, with some ideas of what he wants to do. Like it's not like we talked about Hussein Ashkabov earlier. Hussein Ashkabov knows what he wants to do. Like there are some sidetrack ideas that he has in there. Like I am not only going to wrestle you, I am going to throw dumb strikes and like jumping stuff and spinning stuff and Superman. But like the core aspect of what he wants to do is there. I don't see that with Carpenter. It's a classic case where like Carpenter is the guy who might still be in the UFC in 3 years. He has the base level athleticism to do it. He has a good camp behind him. And losing this fight might absolutely wake him up to the idea that like this is the come to MMA Jesus moment. This is a guy you absolutely should beat. You should stick him on a grill, on a spit, and rotate that around while you absolutely devour him. I'm hungry. But I am actually picking Ronderos to win a decision. It feels a lot like Ronderos' fight against Eric Shelton, a guy whose UFC run was highlighted by, I'm a good athlete. I am a good enough athlete to do this. I should be good at this, and I never put it together. And Carpenter is that guy. Ronderos is a large underdog, and I do not fault anyone. Plus 240 to plus 255. I feel a little bit dirty picking him. I really do. And if Carpenter wins, if Carpenter comes out here and actually shows off a structured game, like that he has taken lessons from his wins and applied them into becoming a better fighter, I will be so happy. So very happy. I will not be happy if Ronderos wins, even with me picking him. But Carpenter at a minus 300 to minus 333 favorite is a little bit insane. I get it. I understand the logic, but that is insane. All right, that's the fight card. There's really nothing else happening this weekend in terms of fights. There's the PFL Challenger Series. There's LFA 153. Is there anything good on PFL 153? Not really. Not really. It's fine. Like it's regional MMA. You should give it a check out, but no, there's nothing. There's nothing I'm looking at and getting excited for. So yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching episode 80 of the Mio MMA podcast, and I'll be back on Sunday with recaps. And good luck to the Bombers. Good luck to the Thunder. Slam Ball Championship tonight, boys. Yeah.